And we're going to be talking about, caring for people and making sure we get things right when it comes to being a friend rather than a social worker. But my guest on the program, first time on the show, but with a connection to my last guest, in fact, Zara Maslin from Laidlaw College. Zara, kia ora, thanks for your time today.
Morning, Andrew. Nice to be here.
Now, off air, just before we went to air, you said that you enjoyed listening to your own old friend and colleague, John Cowan, who, of course, that conversation was on the radio just beforehand. And, in a previous life, you were part of the team, the Attitude team at a parenting place, and when John was kicking around the same space, right?
Yeah, John was working at the parenting place, although I think he'll always still have a bit of a foot in the door there. But yes, I worked for Attitude programs for schools, speaking in high schools all over the country, rural cities, big schools, small schools, all kinds of things. So yeah, that was and I believe John was part of starting Attitude. So
Yeah.
right from the very beginnings, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote some of that material when he was, I don't know, 50 years too old to be a teenager, which
For sure. And I love recycling John jokes to this day.
Exactly. Now, the work that you're doing now, you are a professional teaching fellow at Laidlaw College, and one of the courses that you're involved with this semester is pastoral care in life's crises. But wanting to start off talking about the link between youth work, as it were, and pastoral care. You know, for some people, they think, oh, youth work, isn't that like get around, you have pizza, you play games, that type of thing. But, of course, the pastoral care aspect of youth work, how that relates to pastoral care in a more grown-up setting. What's the link, do you think, Zara?
Yeah, man, I think lots of people thinking of youth work, especially if you go back in the day to little old youth groups eating pizza, sitting on bean bags. That was
Yeah.
the revolutionary draw card. Hey, you can do this here. We've got bean bags. Anyone's welcome. I think people, or a taxi service,
Yep.
dropping people off places. That kind of is what people imagine youth work. But gosh, it has come a long way since then. And in between Attitude and working here at Laidlaw,
Mm-hmm.
I actually was part of Korua Tupu, which is I headed up the Professional Association for Youth Workers.
Mm-hmm.
And that flip, they would tell you youth work is so much more than that. But what I would say is one of the key links, I guess, between pastoral care and youth work and sitting on beanbags and eating pizza is the relationship aspect of it.
Yeah.
And youth work is all about building quality relationships with young people. That's like right at the forefront of it. And if we go, gosh, what can pastoral care learn from youth work around pastoral care, and around what we can learn about quality relationships, we are unlocking an entire world of things that we can learn from each other.
I mean, less pizza and bean bags, and more building genuine relationship, I suppose. But just wanting to look at the difference between being a youth worker and being a social worker, because there is this. I suppose this tension to say, particularly if somebody's employed as a youth worker, as a youth pastor at their local church, in some ways they're doing this professionally, but I mean, this is also true of pastoral care. It's not necessarily the job of the youth worker or the pastoral care person to fix an individual. They're not there to solve their problems. It's more of an alongside type thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you, I mean, first of all, the difference between a youth worker and a social worker is a can of worms I don't want to open
Yep.
today, because there's plenty of room for debate and all kinds of things in there. But when it comes to, I guess, that one of the really key things, if you want to do youth work well, if you want to do pastoral care well, I think is knowing your limits. Being able to go, actually, you know what, this is what my area of expertise is, and this isn't my area of expertise. And that, in fact, is someone else's area of expertise.
Yep.
In youth work, we have what's known as the mana tauhi framework, which is all about acknowledging and enhancing the mana of a young person, where they talk about hononga tauhi. And hononga is about connections and connectedness.
Yeah.
And the old youth development strategy of Aotearoa called that connectedness.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to not just look at somebody as a standalone being, but to go, who are the people surrounding them? What circles are they a part of? It's not just them, it's them and their family, it's them and their peers, it's them and their school or education, or them in their workplace, whatever. We don't have people who just stand alone. And so when it comes to pastoral care and what it looks like to, I guess, wrap around some kind of supports around that person,
Yep.
whether it be them going through a crisis or whether it just be them needing to, I don't know, make more friends or increase some of those other circles. Maybe they need to join John's cycling club. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Our job as the carers or as their friend or as a youth worker is to help connect them and enhance those connections that they have. How do we support them in order to strengthen the connections so that they're not just functioning as a standalone person?
Because positive relationships are a good thing, but you can get into a situation where it's perhaps not as healthy a relationship. There's a bit of a dependency building in there because, you may be, whether this is young people or older people, you may be the first person that's come alongside and listened to their problems and empathized and showed care and respect in that regard. A danger, I suppose, of that relationship going too deep and too fast instead of saying, hey, actually, I can be a friend, I can be a support, but there's some areas where I just need to refer to somebody else who's got more specialist skills here.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, if you had some kind of medical issue,
Yep.
you're not going to give someone medical advice, are you? You're going to say, hey, you know what, you need to talk to a doctor about that. And sometimes the best medical advice is to say you need some medical advice and to refer someone on to that. When it comes to issues like pastoral issues or life issues or personal issues with people, it's a bit harder to draw that line.
Yep.
It's very easy for me to say, I don't know how to fix your broken leg. But it might be easy for me to say, oh man, I went through a relationship breakup once and this is what worked for me. And sure, that's coming from, like speaking from your own experience is a good thing. And
Yep.
we should do that sometimes. It's part of being humble. It's part of acknowledging that we all need help. But actually, it might be a completely different situation and it's not our job. And I think like a counselor, for example, a good counselor works like a surgeon.
Yep.
And trying to counsel someone might be like giving someone a scalpel and just expecting them to be able to do good work with it.
Look, I'll have a
And
go.
I mean, counselors
Yeah.
don't use
scalpels.
Counselors don't use scalpels, I hope. But they have like lovely decor, empathetic faces, which is something that we might have. We might have lovely decor and empathetic faces. I'm hiding my obnoxious blue splashback here, but there's, the line can be blurry, but actually the skill set is something that it's important for us to, I guess, just like pretend to be humble for a moment.
Yeah.
And what comes to the surface? What do I need someone else's expertise when it comes to that?
I suppose the challenge is that the people that tend to get involved with youth work or pastoral care, these are, by definition, these are caring people. These are people that want to help, that want to make a transformational difference in the lives of people who may be going through some really difficult stuff. And I suppose there may be a little bit of a danger here, Zara, that we need to be the rescuer here, that we are jumping into a situation going, hey, only I can help, and getting in a little bit over our heads. I mean, it doesn't take much to look at some of the statistics for youth workers in particular, but pastors generally, to look at the rate of people that are just burning out emotionally. The importance of, I suppose, putting some safeguards in place and saying, hey, I can do this, but I can't do that, even if I'm getting, texts or phone calls from people saying they desperately need me to help them.
Yeah, and exactly what you've said, Andrew, is a really big danger zone, as you say.
Yeah.
And flip, I think these professions, they attract caring people and we want to be able to help, but actually it's more helpful for us and for the person who needs the help
Yeah.
that we refer on. Sometimes we call this the ministry of referral
Yeah.
in pastoral care.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a ministry in itself, knowing the right people to pass people on to. Say,
Yeah.
actually, you know what, this isn't my area of expertise. It would be really great if you worked with a social worker,
Mm-hmm.
or this isn't my area. How about we talk to a counselor? How about we talk to a spiritual director, or a pastor? Maybe we need someone to dig deeper in this with you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be me. And yes, that can be really hard when someone's texting you in the middle of the night, or
Yeah.
when someone
Yeah.
says, I don't feel comfortable talking to anyone except you. And that can be quite like flattering
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
ego. And perhaps what you say to them is, we do need to involve someone else, but I will come with you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a good solution for you there. But yeah, we talk about boundary setting in youth work, and it's really important. But I would say that knowing your limits always goes hand in hand with connectedness.
Mm.
So we're not just going to say, hey, you know what, this isn't my area of expertise, see you later.
Yeah.
Shut the door behind them.
Exactly.
We're
Yeah.
going to, part of our support role is to say, let me help connect you with the right person.
Mm. Genuine relationship rather than, there's a professional aspect to the relationship, and maybe it's easier, Zara, with youth work, because there's a clear delineation. Okay, this is the young person, the rangatahi that I'm working with. I'm the adult in the room. There's a difference there. When it comes to pastoral care, though, you may be in a situation where you're talking to people that you've known for a while, people who are your peers, they're your friends.
Yep.
There's less of a delineation between, oh yeah, here's the young person that needs help, and here's the person that can provide help. In some cases, we're just mates together, right?
Yeah, and when you're doing ministry and pastoral care with your peers, I would say that it's a melting pot of potential danger to go on. And it's easy to kind of go, oh, this is a domestic violence situation, for
Yep.
example. If you can name it, this is an addiction, this is something really big, then it's easy to go, okay, well, I will refer you to an expert on that. But when it's just everyday things, that's when the lines get really blurry and it can get really tricky. And in those situations, I would say it's important for you as the carer to have someone who you can kind of bounce ideas off of. So in a profession like youth work or social work or counselling, we would say take that to supervision.
Yep.
It's not like mandated for a pastor of a church to have supervision. You'd hope they would have someone kind of more their senior. And of course, you can talk about these things anonymously.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not going and spilling the beans on auntie whoever's gossip. It's not about that. We can talk about it anonymously and go and have a third person involved in this, whether they know names or not, who can say, actually, I think it's time for you to take a step back and for you to refer on to somebody else.
Yeah, no, good to get that support. And hey, whether it be in a pastoral care situation in youth work, or just, I appreciate there'll be people listening to this at the moment that are just saying, hey, I've got this friend from church and I'm trying to help them through this thing they're going through at the moment. Just making sure that we've got those lines in place, that we're not their social worker, we're not a professional carer, we're their friend. How can we come alongside them and I suppose support them with love and genuine compassion without getting dragged down in the process? Hey, appreciate the wisdom and experience that you share in this important area. Zara, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Good to be here.